Hello and welcome to Hank Games Without Hank. As you can see there, in a stirring turn of events, we are playing Newcastle United for the third consecutive game. We had 2 FA Cup games with them, and now we have a league game with them. So hello again, Newcastle. Nice to see you. Get ready to get your butts kicked. Today I'm going to talk about fandoms and how fandom has kind of evolved from my day to these days. There's D. McGoldrylocks. But first, let me give you a quick update on our squad. We're playing a largely unchanged side from our FA Cup victory over Newcastle United. If it worked once, why not have it work again? So we've got D. McGoldrylocks and Jesus Angel up front. In the middle, we've got out on the wings, Twice as Vice and S. Holden Goldfield, and then we're anchored in our midfield by Leroy Williamson and Merrick. So I grew up, a fan of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Not as big a fan as my brother, but a pretty big fan of it. And that Star Trek was kind of the first cultural phenomenon that had a fandom associated with it. There were conferences and nerd events and places where you could go and talk to other people about what you were passionate about. And there were mailing lists. Oh! D. McGoldrylocks! He's big, he's red, he's found the perfect bed. D. McGoldrylocks, he's big, he's red, he's found the perfect bed. I'm off key. D. McGoldrylocks! Sorry about that. I'm hoarse from all the goals I've been scoring lately. D. McGoldrylocks in the 6th minute. That means that we are currently on pace to win this game like 40-0. I'm bad at math. But Star Trek, and I remember, I have a picture of my dad. I think it was a video, a VHS tape of us, on the bridge of a version of the Star Trek Enterprise, and we act out all the parts. It's extremely nerdy. That will never see the light of day. But that's not a foul. That's ankle hugging, which is actually, that's not just allowed in soccer. It's encouraged. It's kind of seen as the whole point of playing. So, yeah, I guess I was sort of tangentially involved in the Star Trek fandom. I wasn't a Trekkie, and I was also a little kid. But Hank was really, really into Star Trek, and I think from the beginning, Hank understood, even as a child, understood the power of these emerging communities much better than most people did. So, Hank also played a lot of Magic: The Gathering, which was another early thing that brought these communities together. And there were others, going back, you can go back very far in human history and find communities like this that that might be considered marginalized by some, but that are have really strong communities. And there were comic book stores and places like that. And Hank used. I was the bigger fan of comics than Hank was, I think. But we both used the comic book store as kind of a community gathering space, particularly when Hank played Magic a lot. But it evolved so quickly and so dramatically. Oh my gosh, this guy just went through my entire team. Where was the foul? Please tell me it was outside the box. It was. Everybody stay calm. I may need you, Mark Anderson. No, everything's fine. It evolved so quickly, though. It's difficult to even comprehend how different it is than when I was a kid, when these things were really marginal. And now, even on popular people's Tumblrs, you see them list their fandoms, and the whole idea of fandom has become very powerful in our culture. So that to the point where the most popular sitcom in the United States is essentially about nerds with fandoms. The Big Bang Theory is about people who have really fanish interest. Oh, speaking of fanish, I would have gone total fanboy there if that had been a goal, but it wasn't. Life is so full of disappointments. So it's past being mainstream. That said, the best stuff about geek culture, it's inclusiveness. It's how Jesus Angel goodness gracious. And now we're in big trouble. We're chasing. The Swoodilypooper defense is not known for its ability to chase. But what strikes me as so interesting is that the geek culture has its values have survived even as it has become far more popular and populist. So even though there are way more people who go to Comic-Con than there were 20 years ago, many of the values of inclusiveness and of always saying that we're going to be respectful of others and we're going to not say that your thing is nerdy or lame. We're gonna celebrate it even if it's not our thing. That culture remains pretty strong, and that's something that I really like about our our world, for lack of a better word. Oh, sorry. I can't say community because it's a bunch of communities. But I think, for me at least, a lot of it transformed with the Harry Potter fan community emerging in the early 2000s, which was a very, there was a confluence of things happening. One was that the people who were at the center of the Harry Potter fan community had good values and were very focused on sort of using the values of the books to build a community that reflected those values. And that was something that you hadn't seen a ton of before. Again, you sort of saw it with the Star Trek community, but it was very, very different, and vitally it occurred, or it began at least, outside of the internet age. So that was something that really, I was trying to make a pass. Jesus Angel did not live up to my expectations there. You got to say, he has not had as good a season as D. McGoldrilock's, even though he is ostensibly better on paper. Oh no! Everything's fine. But the Harry Potter fan community had the benefit of the internet, and it also had the benefit of an extremely large group of people who were reading the books, and therefore, like, the hardest core people who were reading the books could then become fans of could become sort of community leaders, I guess. And that model worked really, really well for them. And I have to say, we stole a lot of it when we were thinking about Nerdfighteria, and how to grow and build Nerdfighteria. And we were very lucky that a lot of the early, really committed Nerdfighters were people from the Harry Potter fan community, because they were able to kind of bring the values of that community into Nerdfighteria and make it, inclusive. It's really difficult to be a big tent while also staying true to your values, and the Harry Potter fan community did a brilliant job of that, and still does. And that was something we really wanted to do in Nerdfighteria. How do you be accepting of diversity and embracing of diversity, but still have core values that you try to honor? That turns out to be a really difficult question to answer, because, for instance, there are going to be nerdfighters who think that the world is 6,000 years old, and that's an anti-science thing to believe. So how can you be inclusive of those people while still holding, the values of investigation and science and the scientific method, and still celebrating all that's brought to our species and to our planet? Is a really interesting question, and that we weren't very good at that, Hank and me. But because of the community, they taught us how to do it, essentially, for lack of a better word. They taught us what we meant. Come on! Oh! Back to Leroy Williamson, please! Oh, for the love of God! I just wanted Leroy Williamson to score. So that's been really important to us, and I don't think that I don't think that the Nerdfighter community would have been or would be as strong as it is if it hadn't been for those fandoms that the community emerged out of. Both Zay Frank's community initially, but then in a much bigger way, the Harry Potter fan community. I think, I just think that gave us so much. It just gave us so much. It just taught. Hank and I think Hank and I had learned something from our experiences with fandoms, but we didn't really know how to make it work, how to run it, and those early members of the community taught us that, and I don't think that we would have the strength of community that we have today without it. And I hope that we continue to grow and to keep those lessons in mind. Like, as I said earlier, one of the things that I find really inspirational is that even though geek and nerd culture has dramatically grown and changed in the last 10 years, there is still, the values are still there, and they're still real, and they're still important. And I hope that's true for Nerdfighteria as well. I hope that, as we age and mature, we continue to be a place where people, find those values that really... Oh, Demon Gold Relock! No. It can't be. Oh, that's too bad. He was coming from an offside position. That's devastating. Anyway, I hope that those values can still be part of our community, and that we continue to be driven by them and defined by them, and that we can grow and become bigger without becoming watered down. Essentially, that's always been one of my fears: is that when communities grow, sometimes they get watered down, and hopefully that won't happen with us. Speaking of things that are good news, our opponents are squatting in shame because they have lost. I'm sorry, Newcastle supporters, but you got tied, beat up, and beat up again. Hopefully next time we'll get to play a different team, but I don't know, maybe it's just Newcastle for the rest of the season. Thanks for watching. Best wishes.